the American people stand firm in the faith which has inspired this nation from the beginning. We believe that all men have a right to equal justice under law and equal opportunity to share in the common good. We believe that all men have the right to freedom of thought and expression. We believe that all men are created equal because they are created in the image of God. From this faith, we will not be moved.
Hello, and welcome to the Freedom of Thought podcast. I am your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Freedom of Thought is available on all of your favorite podcasting apps. I thank you once and always for downloading and listening to the show. It is a great pleasure to be back on board with you once again today. Another warm, comfortably warm September day here in Minnesota, at least in where I'm from, Golden Valley, Minnesota. And obviously, it's been a nice, dry, warm month of September here, and it's been very enjoyable for the most part. But at the end of the day, we've been seeing something extremely unusual happening here in very late September, of course, and that is lilacs blooming. Lilacs blooming. For a second, it's like a second batch of lilacs blooming on lilac plants all over the place here in the Twin Cities area for the most part, and other parts of Minnesota, I'm sure. It's crazy. Some people say that it's like, it's happened before and things like that. Sometimes it happens in September. There's like a second batch on the plant. Apparently on the higher part of the plant, which I've noticed pretty much just from personal experience, I guess, noticing it, is that, but for the most part though, for pretty much my entire lifetime, I don't really remember this happening. Sure, there have been some unusual weather patterns. We had tons and tons and tons and tons of rain at the beginning of summer, like spring, and into the beginning of summer. It just kept raining and raining and raining and raining. So it was like an April shower thing that never really stopped. I apologize. I am doing another mobile episode in front of the fire pit, but unfortunately there are a lot of dogs around, so it is what it is. It's just a shame, but not a huge dog fan, I guess, mostly because of that, but it's okay. My point was, though, what I was trying to say is, again, I don't really remember seeing lilacs blooming in September pretty much my entire life. I'm 45 years old. Some of you out there may think it's common. I don't think it's common. I don't really have any memories of it happening as a child, as an adolescent, as a young adult, or now as a middle-aged adult. Other than one other instance, they were kind of blooming in December for some really crazy, strange reason in my brother's yard. Because I think it had warmed up in December for a short time. There was it was just a couple though. So it was like really random and weird. But this is like a whole nother batch of lilacs. Now it's not as many as May, but it's still a very significant amount. So the point of this episode, and you're seeing the title, is God telling us something. Because something this rare happening, is God telling us something? Could it be like a sign that we're getting another chance? Like, say, Trump's getting back in office, Trump is getting another chance? Could it be like that? How it's like a smaller amount now because it's 4 years instead of possibly 8, last time that he won. So back in 2016, could it be that Trump's getting another chance? That's kind of like a sign God's telling us, or like the United States are getting another chance, or possibly a revival's coming. If it's particularly in Minnesota, like something supernatural is going to happen, like a prophecy many years ago from George Washington Carver, that a great spiritual revival, of course, godly Christian revival, would take place. And it would start in the Twin Cities, of all places. It would start in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and go down the Mississippi River. And the Minneapolis, Minnesota is definitely not a place most people would think would be the beginning of a great revival that would spread throughout the entire country, starting kind of going down the Mississippi River and such, from, say, Minnesota to Louisiana, down the whole Mimmel thing, like the whole group of states, Minnesota, Iowa, so on and so forth. So, well, obviously Illinois and all of them is more likely when it comes to the Mississippi River. But, is God telling us something? I think it's a distinct possibility. Of course, there have always been signs of things. To me, this is a pretty rare, special thing. I mean, again, lilacs in September, kind of like a second bloom, like a second chance. Now, the reasoning for the lilacs, at least according to what people have been saying, okay, yes, CBS, Minnesota, I know CBS, watch out. But they don't really have a whole lot to hide here and make things up, I would hope, when it comes to something like this. So Richfield, Minnesota, a popular spring flower, is giving an unusual encore in September. Now, they do say unusual. Lilacs have been spotted blooming for a second time this year in neighborhoods across the Twin Cities and beyond. Eric Bergstrom with the Minnesota State Horticulture Society has a lilac bush in his Richfield yard. It recently bloomed also. Having no water and having this heat has really confused a lot of our plants, Bergstrom said, sorry. So that's one thing there. He said the late bloom is a sign of stress from extreme weather swings. Extreme weather swings. Yeah, like it did get really warm in December, though, a few years back when my brother had it was like one or two little lilac, blooms, whatever, just very small. Meaning like just a couple little groups of flowers, those little patch, whatever they are called. So yes, the extreme weather swings, like I was saying, the beginning of the summer, before the dogs started barking, was extremely wet, and it just kept raining and raining and raining, and I was getting really upset because I'm trying to do a lawn service and also dealing with some pain in my ankle. It's like, come on, I'm tired of this crap. Let me do my job. The humidity was disgusting, and of course, we all know what rain and humidity can mean. It's like flies and mosquitoes and all that, especially mosquitoes. But then, of course, now it has gotten significantly drier in the second half of summer. And, of course, we've had some up and down swings of temperature. Like it dropped significantly. The temperature dropped pretty significantly at the beginning of September. And then it went way up into the mid-80s again. Actually, it was insanely humid for a little while because of hurricanes in the Pacific. Not in the Atlantic, but the Pacific side of the United States. Kind of more like by Mexico and such. California, Mexicali, all that. It did not hit California or anything, but I'm just saying that side of the United States. And the humidity went up into the dew points reached the 70s at one point after, again, the temperature dropped dramatically at the beginning of September. Then you had the big jump, humidity, heat, and all that. And then it dropped significantly again for a few days around the beginning of autumn. So that would be like the third week of September. And then now it's back to, around like low to mid 80s. But it's a much more comfortable dew point this time around and a lot less wind, even though there's been Hurricane Helene, I believe it's called. There's been almost no wind at all, which is really weird for a hurricane to not have wind coming up to Minnesota. I don't think I've seen that happen very often because the hurricane was way out in the Pacific Ocean and we were getting a ton of wind and the dew point was reaching like 74, 75. It was nuts, absolutely nuts. But also the fact it wasn't just one, it was like 3 hurricanes in the Pacific Ocean. So these temperature swings apparently have helped trigger these plants, these lilac plants, to rebloom. Now again, it's about half. I'd say you're seeing about half the amount of flowers you would see in a typical May. So it's not like a full bloom. And how they're advising also that do not prune these seeds or whatever, like say when the flowers dry up, like they always do after a little while. Don't prune them, otherwise it'll affect the spring. So just leave them alone, basically, is what they're saying. And I agree. I would pretty much do the same thing. Unfortunately, I do not own a house, so I do not have lilacs. I should own a house at my age, but I don't at the moment. So it is what it is. I should. I really should. But, you know, it is what it is. So that's what they're saying. Leave that alone. So I just keep coming back to something this rare, because this isn't just unusual. I think it's extremely unusual. I really do. I think it's extremely unusual because I have no memory of this happening in my entire life. And again, I am 45 years old. I'm not 15. I'm not 35. I'm not 25, and I'm not 35. I am 45 years old. I'm not getting any younger. So again, it's like, is God telling us something? Is this a sign? Kind of like the eclipses that took place, like it formed an X. What was it, like the year before? There was an eclipse, or no, 2017, there was an eclipse that went all the way across the United States of America, which is insanely rare. And then this spring, so it was like August 2017, the eclipse that went all the way across the United States of America. And yeah, all the way across the United States of America from Washington to Florida. And then in this case, it was kind of like coming back the other direction, like the southwest up to the northeast. Fascinating stuff, to say the least. Absolutely fascinating, or actually the other way around, but yeah, you get the idea, because east to west type of thing. But it was just absolutely fascinating, and it formed an X near the center of the United States, and people believe that could be a sign of something, you know, and oftentimes it does, and da-da-da-da-da. So obviously some of that stuff, you know, take it with a grain of salt, because do we really know? Do we really know? Well, obviously something's going to give, because this election is absolutely insane. Obviously, again, Biden steps down. No, Trump almost gets murdered. Biden then steps down. Trump almost gets murdered again. Kamala Harris is absolutely nuts. Of course, the media basically labeled like she won the debate, like you know, better than anybody that's ever lived on the face of the planet, any debate in the history of the world. That she's the greatest debater of all time. Plus, you know, that arrogant face. Well, you know, that gets a pass, because, you know, she's just showing Trump what it's all about. You know, she's the smartest person ever, and he's just full of crap, and he's evil and stuff, and she's great. So that's kind of what their mindset was with that. Not that I'm trying to make this a political episode really this time around, but it truly does feel like something, you know, it's a very unusual situation here, and all signs point to a very unusual everything, basically. Obviously the world has gotten weirder and weirder and weirder every day, pretty much the last X amount of years. We're talking back into the 90s, I think. It's just the world's gotten weirder and weirder. You know, you had that crazy election with Gore and Bush. Obviously, you know, the whole Clinton situation even before that, but Gore and Bush in 2000, you know, I don't know, Obama versus Hillary was even quite interesting for a minute there. But I don't know, again, I need to get off of that for the moment. But I don't know, it just feels like something really crazy is about to happen. Maybe lots of really crazy things are about to happen, hopefully on the positive side more than the negative, as that's what we all are definitely hoping for, especially on the Christian side of things. You also heard about the leader of Hezbollah being killed or whatever, like the building being bombed by the Israelites, by the Israeli army. So it's good to see Hezbollah hopefully being defeated, hopefully. So obviously one of their major leaders, if not the leader of Hezbollah, being killed by Israel. So yes, I'm actually not disappointed about that, to say the least. I am half Lebanese, and my dad's not exactly really disappointed about that either. So, so we're not exactly angry at Israel for doing that. Of course, I have never been to Lebanon, though my dad obviously has. He was born there and all of that. So, lived there for quite a while, of course. So, again, it's just, I don't know. It's fascinating to see science continue to happen before our eyes, unusual things happening before our eyes. Anybody has any information as to, like, is this something you've seen? Do you think it's a semi-frequent thing? Does it happen every 20 years, every 5 years? Have you never seen this ever happened before with the lilacs blooming in September like this. And obviously, again, like when you think about God and everything, and like, oh, it's just the weather, it's just patterns and such. Well, you don't think God can that be a part of something like that? Obviously, again, like some of those huge solar flares, that probably was a sign that those things were going to warm up as well. So obviously the sun going through hot and cold stretches. So, it's, yeah, definitely unusual circumstances happening. Nothing crazy going on in the sky right now, but there was a lunar eclipse recently. I know those are pretty common. I don't read into those too much. Some people do. But if there's like a tetrad, yes, that's pretty unusual. And how they kept happening around Jewish holidays and such, that was pretty fascinating. You hear about that a lot in like the End of Days podcast with Joseph Morris. So those are pretty cool, to say the least. Bob Bierman, Truth to Ponder. I don't think he's a huge fan of some of the prophecy YouTubes out there, but I mean, how can you be a fan of all of them? That's for sure. Most of them are just people looking for clicks. They're not, because they're always wrong. They always are conveniently wrong. So there is that. I'm not trying to predict anything. I'm not really trying to indicate at anything or nudge at anything. But I don't know. It does kind of feel like we hopefully could be in for at least some kind of a reprieve, some kind of a second chance, so to speak. And boy, do we need one right now. Thank you, Lord. And we got to keep praying and get right with God right now. This is a time to get right with God. There is no better time than now to get right with God. And that's kind of it could be like a message, like, yeah, this is another opportunity. Just like the lilacs having another bloom, like another opportunity of the lilacs blooming again in times of stress. So maybe it's time for us to bloom in times of stress. Is that what God's telling us? And then we're going to get another chance with, say, like a Trump presidency versus a Kamala Harris presidency, which would be an absolute disaster for this country. There's no doubt about it. Now, again, and I would love to get back into some of those, those science type episodes, Nephilim giants and such. This one's a bit scientific, because when you consider how rare this event is of lilacs blooming again in late September. Like, nobody thinks about lilacs in late September, do they? It's kind of weird. It's so and it's it's really cool at the same time. Heck, I swam in Medicine Lake today. I swam on September 28th in Medicine Lake, and you know what the water felt like? June. It didn't feel like a cold September water, or even like the beginning of the month of September when it starts to cool down a bit, or like late August. It's a little cooler now. It's okay though, that kind of thing. It felt like about like June, not like July, but like June. And felt that the last couple of weeks here. So it's been really cool to be able to swim this late in the year. It's one of my maybe top 5 latest swims of all time. So love being able to swim in the lake on September 28th. So, yeah, is God telling us something? That's kind of my short message for today. Again, like to put together something big, something fun, have more of a prepared episode when talking about stuff like, again, maybe something giant related, something, heck, even a Bigfoot show one of these days, any other type of situation. Obviously getting guests on that have seen things like this, that have a lot to say. I mean, that'd be awesome to have somebody on like that. I mean, anybody is welcome to email me. If you've seen, put it this way, if you have seen anything like a Bigfoot, a werewolf, UFOs, giant, if you've seen a giant or found giant bones or heard about anything, saw anything crazy, angels, dare I say demons, gray aliens, if you've seen anything like this and you'd like to share your story on Freedom of Thought, you are here for Freedom of Thought. I'm here for you on Freedom of Thought. You can share it either via email or you can join on the show. We can do a show together, a podcast together. You can be my guest on Freedom of Thought. paladinolive@yahoo.com, paladinolive@yahoo.com, or of course even the whole voicemail type of thing, or what do they call that, audio submission, where you just simply record a message with your smart device or your laptop or your desktop, one way or another, and then email it to me at paladinolive@yahoo.com. If need be, I will convert the file from whatever it is to an MP3, via cloudconvert.com. I really appreciate that website. So they've offered a free service by just simply being there. So I'm more than happy to give them a free plug here on Freedom of Thought. So yeah, if you have anything to say about that, anything to say about the weather, maybe you want to be a guest to talk about like strange weather patterns, strange weather conditions, thoughts you may have. Again, it could be just an email, it could be a audio submission, or you could be an actual guest on the show, and we could talk about these things together. And you will have the floor as much as possible, just like Gerald String had a pretty big conversation about the whole situation with farming and GMO versus like GMO or whatever versus organic and all that. It's a really pretty cool phone call that went on for about 17 minutes. And you know what? That was great. That was great. Great job. But it'd be also nice to have a show where we're even on together. Sometimes my schedule's weird, but we'd figure something out. Anybody wants to talk about anything like that, crypto type stuff, cryptoids type stuff, crypto, like cryptocurrency, if you want to talk about that. Yeah, we can talk cryptocurrency a little bit. I'm no genius, but I have some knowledge on it. So there's that. We're all here for you. Is God telling us something? He's telling us something for sure. He's absolutely telling us something this unusual. He is telling us something. And part of it, I do believe, again, is that we really need to get right with him. It's absolutely time. We're getting closer to the end. There's no doubt about that. And this country is going through a time of stress, just like the Lilacs are going through. It's like God is putting it in me right now to say this, because I wasn't even thinking this even before I started the show. It's just coming to me that God is putting us, or God is, God's not putting us through a time of stress, but see how we're going through a time of stress, and now he's giving us a chance to bloom again. And that's here, we're here. It's our time to bloom. It's our time to bloom. We need to bloom during these times of stress, this up and down situation. Trump's ahead. Trump almost got killed. Trump's doing good. Oh, Kamala Harris destroyed him in a debate because he's talking about Haitians eating dogs and cats and stuff, which is not untrue. Might not be as common as some people try to say, but bad things are happening over there at Springfield, Ohio. And bad things are happening in other parts of the country. Just look at San Francisco. Is it so great? No, it's not. So things like that, times of stress. God is telling us to bloom, and now it's our time to bloom. We have to pray. We have to get right with him, and we will get that second chance, just like the plants did. Whew, yep, it's definitely something. So get in touch with me one way or another. Let's do this. It'd be great. I think the show would be better, more inclusion with you out there, whoever you are. If it's Gerald String, if it's Mark Carlson, Lee Hepner, anybody out there I haven't met, I'd love to. I'd love to talk to you or hear from you. If you don't want to do a show together, but you'd like to write an email or whatever, or just kind of, like tell your story one way or another, you're more than welcome to do that here on Freedom of Thought. With that said, thank you so much. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.